What's happening, guys? BJ here, coming at you for another video. Today's video, what we're going to talk about is 6 ways fasting will benefit you. So we have a lot of influencers out there. You've got Brandon Carter, you've got Kino, you've got Thomas Delauer, and they're very much talking about the fasting ketogenic combination, right? And in this video, what I want to highlight is 6 benefits behind fasting that can give you immediate scientific results in the gym when it comes to weight loss and maintaining good composure over a long period of time. So let's get into it. Okay, the first thing we want to talk about is a thing called gluconeogenesis. Now, often our body is reliant on glucose for energy, and we then begin to break down that glucose into glycogen, which is then stored in the muscles and the liver. So depending on how much sugar you have in your blood, it should usually take about 48 hours for the blood sugar levels to fully be in the muscles and the liver. Once we've got that, our body can then switch into burning fats for energy, which is in the form of ketones. Okay. The second thing I want to talk about is hunters and gatherers. As humans, we have evolved from campsites to certain periods of time. We could go weeks upon weeks without actually eating or actually feasting on animals or plants or anything like that. So usually it's a really good rule of thumb for 16 hours when you're fasting, which will teach you more about disciplining your body when it comes to fasting. This is what they call the breakthrough moment in fasting, where people actually start to become more immersed in their bodies and understand from a deeper level the importance, or even more of a spiritual level, the importance of not eating. In certain faiths, you have, like in Muslims' faiths, they have Ramadan and Eid Mubarak, right? So there's some blend of a spiritual and religious belief that fasting actually helps us become more connected to ourselves, but also to a higher power. And often we become so conditioned by our breakfast time, our lunch time, and our dinner time that our body actually signals certain hormones to elicit a response. Which brings me to my point number 3, which is your hunger hormones. There's things called leptin and GHRELIN. Now, what they're called is satiety hormones. So when we are satisfied, we have a thing called leptin, which then decreases our cortisol levels and elevates our dopamine levels. But then if you look at things like when you're fasting, for example, you've got a thing called GHRELIN. Now, GHRELIN is a thing called a catabolic hormone, which when you're hungry, you get those hunger pangs. That's what's released in the blood, right? And it makes you elevate your cortisol. You become highly stressed. You're searching around in a frenzy for food or drink because you feel like you're in crisis mode. Now, what I want to stress is the importance of the 16-hour period without food, because what that's going to do, it's going to teach you how to discipline your body so then you can become more connected to higher faith or even more inner spirituality. Now, let's talk about tip number 4, which is a thing called insulin sensitivity, right? As your body consumes carbohydrates, it actually breaks down those carbohydrates into glucose. And when we have glucose in our blood, it creates a thing called insulin response, right? To regulate the blood sugar levels. And what actually happens when insulin sensitivity increases, it makes the receptivity to insulin higher, which means it's actually taking up more blood sugar, and which is then decreasing your chances of developing any form of heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, or any form of a hormonal dysfunction, right? So it's super healthy. You want to have high amounts of insulin sensitivity. Now, number 5 is a thing called AUTOPHAGY, which is a fancy way of saying a programmed cellular death. Now, what actually happens when we constantly eat is we don't give our body enough space to break down and recycle the substances that we have in our body. And if we constantly are eating, I remember back when I was bulking, I was trying to get from 70 kilos all the way up to 85 in the space of about 6 to 8 months. Dreamer, I know. And basically what happened was I was super lethargic. I was like super fatigued. I was really tired all the time. I was super moody, right? And I was very sluggish. And it was because I was eating so much, I was building up so much inflammation in my body that I couldn't function properly. So what we want to do is we want to allow our body to be in a catabolic state so then it can recycle and process what we need to, so then we can basically repair and regenerate ourselves. And there's a thing called a BDNF, right? And that's when you go beyond the 16-hour fasting period into more of a 48, 24, 48, even 60-hour period, which brings me to point number 6, and that is a thing called growth hormone. What actually happens when we hit that 16-hour period of fasting, we're then on the precipice of basically complete catabolism of muscle protein synthesis and even muscle growth, right? Which may seem like a bad thing at the time, but once you go beyond that 16-hour period into more 24 hours, 48, or even 72 hours, you're actually increasing your growth hormone by 1250%, okay? So whilst it may seem counterproductive in the beginning, according to studies, once we tank our protein building, our growth hormone actually skyrockets. So there's some interesting facts for you guys to ponder. Fasting can actually increase a thing called norepinephrine, which actually facilitates the growth hormone in your body, which is, I argue, is beneficial because of the high amounts of testosterone boost from the growth hormone. So that's it, guys. That's my 6 tips on fasting, which is all backed by science. I'll leave all of the studies in the description below. Make sure you check out those. And yeah, guys, if you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe. And if you have any comments, make sure you chuck them down below. But as always, guys, be a better version of yourselves and peace out.